on the Everyday Board Game Podcast with Daniel.
Hey, Daniel.
I'm throwing you off, I know. We're going to start our quarterfinal debates. We are going to start very quickly, jumping right into it. We might as well do this. Now, just a quick background thing. Daniel knows these games probably better than I. Um, I have played all of these, except for... I've played every game on here once, except for one of them, which I've played numerous times, which we're going to go into the debate. And we'll see how well it does. So, let's start with our number 1 seed, Gloomhaven, versus our number 8 seed, Star Realms. I'll go ahead and take Star Realms. Why don't you give us a start?
Alright, so Gloomhaven, just going through our brackets and stuff like that. The only bracket I could see it not winning is Ease of Play.
It is not as easy to play as Star Realms, you're correct.
But the replay value of it, length of time, yeah, it'll be a little bit longer than Star Realms, but you also have more plays to get the full experience. You have the expandability of it because the scenarios are just... I have the solo scenarios I haven't even touched yet from my version of Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
So you got your replay value. The meaningful choice in this game is ridiculous because of the card play, the way it works. You impact how other players are going to have to do their stuff, and it's a co-op because, okay, I got to do this, I got to go over here and take care of this. This is what's going to happen, as well as my long-term strategy because I got little cards that goals I need to make, so I want to make sure I do those properly, as well as arbitrary choices. If you make a mistake in this game, it hurts. It hurts a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's not only going to affect you, it affects the rest of the team. First time I ever played this game, I Leroy Jenkins into a room because I was the tank, and I needed to beat up some stuff for like the other people who were like meat bags. So they're squishy meat bags because if they got hit, they're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that didn't work out well for me.
Yeah.
I got surrounded and just got hit every single round or every turn to the point where I just got whittled down. The theme, game immersion, theme matching the mechanics or mechanisms, it's great. It's one of the first dungeon crawls that don't have dice. It's card play. You have to think about how you're going to use your cards. There is a little luck with the modifier deck, where if it's going to add to your attack or subtract from your attack or negate your attack or double your attack, kind of like a dice roll, but it's card play. And there's ways you can mitigate it as you go, because you can increase the power of your creature or person that you're playing as and take cards out of it at that deck and add cards to it to make it more beneficial for you. Interacting with other players, it's co-op, table talk. You all make decisions together as well as memorable moments. And before we even go into the art and production on this, that game is gorgeous.
The only thing that I would argue away from that, as far as Star Realms, is I really do think that the art on Star Realms is phenomenal. I mean, the production value and the graphic design is definitely better in Gloomhaven. And the art is okay in Gloomhaven. It's pretty good, but it is pretty good.
Thinking about this way, yeah, you have art on the cards for Star Realms. That's the main thing. You have art on the standees for the bad guys. You have art on the tiles that are going out there. You have art for each of the individual things that go on top of the tile.
I'm just talking like the cards in your hand and like all the encounters and the events. They're all fairly generic.
But there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You don't want to put artwork on the cards in your hand for one reason. You can actually modify those cards. There's a little sticker pack in there that you can add stickers to make them where they give you stunning abilities, bleeding abilities, piercing abilities, and stuff like that. So there's ways that you modify the card too. You don't want to put artwork on that because it's going to get damaged. And the other thing I think the art's really nice is the board, which has nothing to do other than tell you what scenarios you're going to do. But you put stickers on it and fill in the board. So you're adding locations in if you put it just right, it matches up and makes it look like a grandiose map. Oh, we found this location, let's add it to it. So I really enjoy that. I think the artwork is really good. The components and pieces to it are amazing. And the design is incredible.
I don't disagree with the pieces and the graphic design. I'm just saying I think the art in Star Realms and as well as Hero Realms and stuff like on top of that, all of the Realms games from White Wizard is not to be discounted. Like that art is absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, as far as art and production, that's the production part of that that really pushes Gloomhaven over the top. Yeah, and then ease of play definitely goes to Star Realms. As
Oh yeah.
meaningful choices, yeah, I mean it's a deck builder. There is choices, but it's not nearly as much. Replay value, I think it hits the table easier than Gloomhaven because you even say that like it you know it's
The length of time, yeah.
yeah, the length of time and also the fact of just the setup on Gloomhaven is just an absolute beast.
Yeah,
But
it is.
immersion, yeah, that would go to that, which means I think you and I both agree.
Yeah.
As much as I could argue all day for Star Realms, I do prefer Star Realms at the moment. That's just because I haven't played much of Gloomhaven. I do own it, but I played it once, and it wasn't even was it my copy that we played?
Yeah, it was yours.
Okay, cool. I don't remember if you brought yours over, but yeah. So Gloomhaven moves on.
So, just so people know, somebody, I'm not naming names, forgot to put a poll for our tiebreaker. So, our new tiebreaker for this round is crowdfunding, the most funding. So, yeah, Gloomhaven is going to be one of the higher ones, I believe. I think it might be one of the highest ones on here.
Yeah.
I have them all pulled up on Kickstarter. So, that's how we're going to do it.
Okay. Yep, I couldn't agree more. All right. Match number 2, Scythe versus Raiders of the North Sea.
And just to let everybody know, Star Realms funded at, since it's not going on, I'll go ahead and let people know, 51,481.
Yeah, which is, considering the game itself is like a $15 card game, $15 to $20 card game, that's pretty good. That's significant.
That's actually not bad. Their goal was 20,000. They went 31,000 over their goal, so
yeah,
that's kind of impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely not bad at all.
Especially since this was like the early part. I think this came out in 2014, 13, somewhere around there.
That was before big giant waves of games are coming through in the past couple years. All right, yeah. Scythe versus Raiders of the North Sea. Now, you own neither of those, right?
No. I do enjoy both of those games. I've played both of those games. Actually, the buddy who I tend to play with these kind of games with owns both of these games.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I am okay arguing for Raiders.
Okay.
Probably.
Sounds
good. Yeah, okay. All right. Let's do that. You'll take on Scythe. So, Raiders of the North Sea. It is a worker placement, kind of like an evolving worker placement game. It's really smart how it works. You have the North Sea spread out over the map. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be putting out certain colors of workers. Now, the thing is, the workers belong to you. The colors that you put out are effectively what their value is, I guess, is one way to think of it. You don't put out, like in a traditional worker placement game, one worker of your color and then block a spot from somebody else. This, you place out your worker, it does block the other player, but then you take the resources that are there, normally including other workers. So it's like this.
It doesn't block someone out, because what you do is you place one, you get the resources in that area, and then you pull one, and you get the resources in that area. So if they still want to do it, they just got to place theirs and then pull that same one. They still get the resources. It's not really blocking anybody.
Yeah.
The only time it blocks is when you're playing on the north side of the board.
That's right. Yeah. So that part of the board you will be blocking, but otherwise you normally take your resources. I like the place one and take one idea. Yeah. You're using 2 different worker placement spots, 2 different abilities. It's a really smart game as far as how the design works. Effectively, all you're doing is worker placement, getting resources, trading them in for victory points when it's boiled down to the very simplest of ideas. But I think it's a really smart design, and Shem Phillips, who designed it, working with that, I think did a really, really phenomenal job as far as how those mechanisms were implemented, how innovative they were, and how different they are.
Funny story. We'll see another Shem Phillips game later on the list.
Yep.
Actually, in the next category.
In the next category, we will. Yep. So I don't know. I think Raiders of the North Sea was really interesting. I played it with 3 other people. It was the first time I played it, and that was in Tucson in a bar that we set it up during a convention, and it was really neat how it ended up working out. We enjoyed it a lot. So Raiders of the North Sea, I think if it doesn't go on, it's definitely pushing pretty hard. Like I feel like it has legs to stand on.
To me, this one is really going to have to come down to the categories.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Scythe, if I remember correctly, is actually Stonemeyer's last Kickstarter. I think it was the last one, and then they went exclusively to pre-order and production value, or like their own production, without going through Kickstarter.
Yep.
And so Scythe for me is probably in my top 10 games of all time. So there's a little bit of bias here. But the reason why I enjoy Scythe so much is the action selection in it. It's one of the first games that I've ever played that had that action selection. Villainous is another good example of it. Whereas your pawn goes to one area, you get to use that ability at the top part of it, and if you have certain things, you can do the bottom part of that ability as well, or that section. But what's neat about it is that you cannot stay in the same spot. You have to choose a new action every time it comes to your turn.
Right.
My only gripe about this game is that it can play long. It just because you have to reach, I think it's 12 stars. Mm-hmm. There's different ways you can get stars, different abilities to get stars, and it's just it takes its time. It's one of those grandiose games. I love the theme and the lore of it, where it's playing in this alternate universe, Russia, where you have mechs in it, and so you're trying to build like this socialist society with farming and the mechs and the warring with other factions. It's a really neat thing, but like I said, both these games do things really well, so it comes down to we really need to go into the tiebreaker because I can see either one of these moving on.
Right, exactly. So let's just jump right into it. Is any of these that I feel... Well, I'm gonna say art and production goes to Scythe, and that's because
hands down, the plastic minis, because of the production value in it, the
the art that he licensed. Yeah. Not to say that the art is bad for Raiders of the North Sea. In fact, that's one of my favorite parts about it. Is I do like that art a lot.
I would say ease of play would go to Raiders of the North Sea slightly. It is the simplicity of the mechanism is the easier one. The action selection is fine, but trying to remember what all those actions do is different. Also, I think once you get going in Raiders of the North Sea, it's easier to pick up after, say, 1, 2, 3 turns, watching everybody else do it as well as you doing it. Yeah. Scythe, if it's your first time playing, it's going to take you a little while to figure it out. I mean, halfway through the game, you'll be fine. Because you're like, okay, this works, this is how this works, but it takes a little bit longer to get into it.
Right.
And Scythe, biggest problem is the AP.
Yeah, exactly. And even like familiarity with the mechanisms or familiarity or simplicity of it, that would probably be also Raiders.
So I think art production goes to Scythe, ease of play goes to Raiders.
Okay.
So now we have the other 3 to break down.
All right.
Replay value, length of time, and scales well. I think that part of it goes to Raiders of the North Sea. That one is just, though it doesn't play as long, and it scales pretty well. Even let's just put it this way: a full contingent in Raiders still does not take as long as a 3-player game in Scythe.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even close. Now let's talk about additional content. So Scythe has an expansion, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Several expansions, in fact, including their most recent expansion, which makes it much more expandability, as well gives it the minimum number of plays for a full experience.
Okay.
It adds a campaign to it.
Okay. Well, then let's say replay value goes to Scythe then.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that.
Gives you a campaign where there's different little boxes that you're opening as you go along the game. It also has the expansions that I see. I'm thinking of My Little Scythe right now because they just added that one. It's where it adds like Zeppelin characters, people with Zeppelins in it. Pie in the Sky is what it's called in My Little Scythe. I forget what it's called in actual Scythe, but it's the same expansion.
Okay, so let's go replay value for
Scythe.
And then meaningful choices. All right,
so impacting this one is going to be a bit tough. So if you go impacting the other player,
That would be
Scythe doesn't
Raiders of the
really.
North Sea. Yeah.
Yeah, so Scythe doesn't really impact the other players, except for the fact of when you're moving stuff on the map that can lead to open warfare with each other, basically.
Right.
Other than that, however, impact on long-term strategies, I would say Scythe wins this one because you're trying to make sure you get the stars before everybody else, and how you do it is how you want to do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of paths to do that. Whereas arbitrary choices,
I don't know how we want to score this one per se, because if you make a mistake in Scythe, it's going to hurt you. And
yeah,
it's going to hurt you bad.
Yeah, I feel
make a mistake in
the in Raiders.
It's not going to hurt you as bad as Scythe. Scythe can put you far behind.
Then meaningful choices goes to Scythe, which means Scythe moves on.
Yeah, and we don't even have to go into the game immersion, but kind of want to do it. The matching mechanisms, I think they're both pretty good.
Yeah,
because you are raiding monasteries, interacting with other players. More so in Scythe than Raiders of the North Sea, I would say.
Yep.
As well as memorable moments. I have way more memorable moments in Scythe than Raiders.
Yeah, the only memorable moment I really have with Raiders is the fact that I played it in a bar, and that was just the experience, not the game itself. I enjoyed it, but I was pretty tired that day.
All right,
but I did enjoy it quite a bit.
Is moving on.
All right.
Oh, and just to let everybody know, we forgot to mention this. There will be a reseeding for the next round. So the only time Gloomhaven will meet Scythe is in the finals.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's go into Orleans versus Architects. I will take Orleans.
Okay, just give me 1 second because it was eliminated. Raiders of the North Sea funded at... Oh, I didn't do this. It's an exchange rate here. It funded at 156 New Zealand dollars.
Oh, nice.
Which is roughly 100,000 or so American U.S. dollars.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Yeah, let's go into Orleans versus Architects of the West Kingdom. Now,
Alrighty.
Full disclosure, I don't like Architects of the West Kingdom. Like, for all the viewers at home, I really disliked my play of this. I liked Orleans fine. I didn't care for it that much. It's not one of the ones. There's been a couple of worker placement games and a couple of Euro games that I've played recently where I'm like, wow, I need to go buy that. That's such a good game. Gentis comes to mind. The Rajas of the Ganges, that comes to mind. Those are all phenomenal games. Orleans, I was fairly indifferent. I was okay with that. But Architects, I really disliked it. If I owned it, I would have sold it. And
that's why you're wrong.
Well, we'll explain why here in a minute. But do you mind taking Architects for this argument?
Oh, no, I do not mind at all. In fact, I decided to break down the dollar.
Break down the what?
Because, again, it's a Shimphilip game, so it's New Zealand. So I had to break down the...
Oh, yeah. You had to convert.
To U.S. dollars.
Gotcha. Okay, why don't you start?
Alrighty, so Architects of the West Kingdom, along the lines as Raiders of the North Sea, is a new style of worker placement that Shim has been doing. With Raiders of the North Sea, you pick one up, you put one down, you pick one up, and you get this one. This one, you get all your workers in the beginning of the game. And so every time you place them out, depending if you put them in the same area, they tend to give you better resources. So if you have two there, you get more resources from that area. I know the big part of it, why you don't like it, is because you can capture other people's things and throw them in prison. That's how you can get some money. That's your biggest gripe with it, if I remember correctly, is the prisoning system.
Yeah, and I'll clarify it why I dislike that system. But that was my biggest argument. One thing I will give it credit for is I do like the worker placement, the scaling, where the more workers there are on a spot, the better the ability is. But that's that goes into the detriment.
Prison,
yeah,
you have to be careful with what you're doing because you're going to make it enticing for people to take all your people from there. And there is ways to mitigate the prison system. It just involves you spending money, which is another thing you didn't like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could mitigate the prison system, but it's just like if you want to do any kind of long-term, like, hey, I really want to build up this so I can really do it, you are not allowed to, because the other players, rightfully so, and I do say that is how it's designed, they will look at you building that up and say, oh, well, we need to send you to prison, and that is completely out of your hands. The mechanism for making it accelerate in an engine building is why the other players make you have a target painted. So the only way to do well is to not do well. That's why that, like, say, I'm going to compare it to a very different game.
I agree with you in that aspect because, again, there is ways you do have to pay money. But
the best way to get money is to do that and to send them to jail.
There's other ways to get money.
There's other ways, but that's the most effective way.
I mean, if you have the silversmith, you make money.
Yeah, but not as much as sending people to prison.
And again, there's ways to mitigate it. I had a thought on my head, and you just took it out of my head right now.
My apologies. But, I'm going to do a weird comparison to this, and that's... and at first you're going to be like, what are you talking about? Gizmos, okay?
Never played it, so I can't make a judgment on that.
Okay, no, that's fine. It's a very different game, right? But in Gizmos, like, you take an action, then you get this, and this, and because you've taken these 3 actions, you also get this bonus, and because you did this bonus, you also get to do another bonus. And that has a very engine-building feel. In, like, Raiders of the North Sea, like, what I'm building is, like, I'm pre-planning a lot of stages ahead. I really enjoy that. This, it's just response. If I'm like, well, all right, what is the only way I can get these resources that I want without them sending them to prison?
The prison system actually works for this game because it fits thematically. This is supposed to take place in that medieval time where each warring faction of, I guess, the Architect Guild, I guess you could say, put suspicion on each other to cause those arrests.
No,
to me, it feels thematic for this kind of style of game.
I'm not saying it doesn't. I do agree with you.
See,
I 100%.
Your issue with it is that you boil it down to the mechanisms, where I add the theme to the mechanism.
You're right. I could go without the mechanism.
You're a player. You hate theme whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. But, like, let's say Castles of Burgundy, though. Like, let's just add in some variable to that. Let's say you're building up some part of your city on Castles of Burgundy, and the best way that I can, like, I look at my board and I'm like, wow, I can get a bonus of 2 more dice and 2 more actions if I take the tiles that you bought. Like, it's just that it's so frustrating to watch, like, you attempt to build up, like, this awesome culmination of things. Like, and I get that it's like, oh, well, the point is you're supposed to mitigate it and mitigate the other players and not make it as enticing for them. But that's the whole, it's not a worker placement. It's not an engine building. It's a risk mitigation game, really, is what it is in a way, right? The only way that I can...
You're entitled to your wrong opinion, but that's beside the point.
You're not giving me a counter argument. I just that part was incredibly infuriating.
The counter argument. It fits the theme.
Yeah.
You're arguing a mechanism because you don't like it.
Right.
But thematically, it actually fits because if this was, say, the 1500s, the guilds would do and cause suspicion to another guild to force arrest from the kingdom.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, I mean, it's cutthroat. It really is. I
disagree with it, but you can't counter that argument. All you're saying is it makes it bad because you can't be efficient.
I didn't say it makes it bad. I said it makes it incredibly frustrating. As a player who wants to build an engine and wants to do that, that's the gripe I have against the game, personally. That's why I don't like it.
It fits thematically.
Cool. Awesome. I mean, I'm sure, like, if you fit a game based on, like, the movie Saw thematically and included a saw and a shackle, it'd be super thematic, but it wouldn't feel good.
You've never seen the movie Saw, have you?
I have. I saw it on a very low resolution back in the day. It was like the screen was about that big. Anyway, so, yeah, I mean, go ahead and continue on Architects, because we will go through the 5 parts of it.
It's your turn on Orleans, because I'm ready to make that argument right there.
Okay, cool. Orleans, so it's a bag builder, it's an engine building, and a worker placement. So what you're basically doing, in a small worker placement, not enough to be on our worker placement list, but it is a pool building game. are getting different workers of different types, adding them to your bag, and then being able to use them onto your board for their specific abilities, because each of the tokens does have its own ability. You are getting victory points in a number of different ways. Similar to Architects of the West Kingdom, is that there's a lot of paths to victory, but because of the engine building and the pool building, I can see why it's ranked this high. Now I know I'm not. It's been a long time since I've played it, so I know I'm not portraying it as well as like a harder fan. And in full disclosure, I liked it fine. It was okay, but I'm not gonna buy it. So I'm okay with either of them going on as far as which game I like better. But let's go down for the breaker or the tiebreakers just to make sure we're covering it.
All right, so ease of play.
Ease of play. That's Orleans, definitely, because the pool building is a very simple idea.
Yeah, but everything else of the game isn't. Having to put the right combination into the right area, trying to move your characters, trying to collect the right type of resources, and moving certain stuff up certain tracks does not basically, when you boil down the ease of play for Architects of the West Kingdom, it's a worker placement. Yeah, you have other things going on, but I'm doing this, I'm getting this resource. I'm doing this, I'm building this by spending these resources. I'm doing this to get this card by spending this money.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
The simplicity of the mechanism is so much easier in Architects of the West Kingdom because it boils down to the worker placement part. I'm putting this worker down to do this action. What do I do? Do I get resources? Do I spend resources? Or do I spend coins to get a character in my tableau?
Okay. I'll give you that. The simplicity and familiarity part of the mechanism. Sure. Okay. AP prone?
Likely to get to the table, I think it would be Architects of the West Kingdom, again, because of the worker placement part of it. Because what people aren't realizing with Orleans, and what you forgot to mention in there, is that yes, it's a pool building, bag building, that's the main core of it, but that pool bag building allows you to move your character on the Orleans map, trying to gain resources there. That also allows you to move up certain tracks. That also allows you to move up certain things. So there's a lot going on that can intimidate some players.
Okay. All right. I don't disagree with that, but that it's also as far as that goes, it's not that difficult to pick up. But
worker placement.
And as far as
people know worker placement, then they know, okay, this and these make this. This allows this to do this.
Right. I would argue though that it is more AP prone for Architects. And I know that it's kind of a moot point because I do think ease of play does go to Architects either way. But I
don't see that because I've played both games several occasions.
Yes.
I've had more issues with AP Prone and Orleans than I have in because they're trying to make the decision of what characters to get, what kind of stuff to do. The only indecision really is: do I capture this? Do I move here? Do I do this? Do I put more over here? Because that's going to make it more enticing for someone to steal it later.
No, but the thing is,
black market?
You're proving it right there, though. It's more AP prone because the thing is, and this we'll go into meaningful choices later because the choices that I make.
We have a guy that we play with that we know who's AP prone. Which do you think would be the problem more in Orleans, where you have to think a lot more how you're going to use your bag building?
I think he would be way more. He was way more AP prone on. He didn't play Orleans, but he was definitely more AP on Architects because.
He didn't play Architect.
Didn't he?
No, it was a 3-player game with our other buddy that we played with on Wednesday.
Oh, that's right. Wow, yeah. God, it seems like it was like a 5-player game. It took long. Because I remember my turns, it was like 20, 30 minutes before each of my turns in Architect.
No, honestly, you're just remembering that one play. Orleans has a much higher tendency to be AP prone. Because I remember playing it with a 2-player and it took long. I remember playing it with a 3-player and it took long. I remember playing it with a 4-player and it took long.
The reason why I say that I think Architects is more AP prone, and I know we're just like arguing a moot point. The reason why I feel like it is more AP prone is because in Orleans, like if you take the spot that I want to go to, okay, it's locked away, right? But if you if you take my workers and architects, that's 3 more turns I have to plan for now. I have to okay, well I need to eventually get to them.
Architects ends up winning that, but
easy
I
play.
disagree with you because, again, you saying you got to trust me on this.
No, I know.
I played these a handful more times
True.
than you have.
How many times have you played both, if you don't mind my asking? I mean, you've played it more than me, for sure.
Probably about 6 or 7 times. In Orleans, I've played about 4 times.
In Architects, did you see anybody else get screwed over nearly as badly as I did that one time we played?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, but they also knew how to mitigate it, too.
Hey, hold on now.
I'm not lying, they did.
Hold on. No, anyway. Alright, art and production. The art, I kind of like the art because of the colors popping on Orleans.
I like it better, actually, personally, on Architects of the West Kingdom because I could see it better. Orleans has that same brown-green problem that Alea has, especially when it comes to their board.
Not nearly as bad, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
It still has that same problem.
Alright, pieces and components. They both have wooden pieces. I think that would probably go to Orleans. I like the tokens better than the meeples, but
I would give it to Architects because of the meeples. There's just so much more production value into it.
The graphic design is very, very clear in Architects, so yeah. Art and production goes to Architects.
Replay value. Length of time and scale well. I'll give you that Orleans could be length of time a lot shorter depending on the number of players.
Yeah.
Architects 3-player can be long.
And deck builders really do have the ability to expand on content too.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Architects does just had its first expansion. Artisans, that's about it.
Right.
And the minimum number of plays full experience, they're pretty much the same. When it comes down to it, Orleans just had an expansion. I don't know recently, but makes it a co-op rather than a
yeah. So
modules and stuff like that.
Replay value goes to Orleans.
So that's
immersion.
1.
Yeah, so we have 2-1 right now. Let's go immersion.
This is hands down for me personally. It's Architects of the West Kingdom because that's what I was talking about earlier. Theme matching the mechanisms. It does. I know you hate it, but it matches the mechanism for a time period.
Yeah.
And it does cause a lot of interacting with other players.
There's a lot of player interaction. And memorable moments. Yeah, I mean, I can't. It was such a bad memory, but it is memorable. So, all right, let's give it to Architects.
Architects of the West Kingdom, but meaningful choices. Honestly, for me, that's a wash. Arbitrary choices is the only thing that would really break it. I think if you make a mistake in Western Kingdom, it could hurt you a lot more because Danny wasn't playing the Capture the Guy game.
Yeah, I was trying to play Civil, and I didn't realize that, in order to be...
You, of all people, never play Civil, so it's surprisingly that you try to play Civil.
No, I play incredibly Civil, but the thing is, like with our Carcassonne game, so clarifying for our viewers, we played a game of Carcassonne the other day, and I am able to wiggle my way onto almost any feature and gain majority beyond most people.
No, but here's the problem with that. The 3 times that I've played with you, no matter who we're playing against, you always do it to me.
I mean, it's not that I'm aiming for you, Daniel. It really wasn't, because I did do that to Dom, but it just somehow the tile that I pulled.
Dom, you didn't get into any of his features. You just blocked him.
I did. That town that scored me like 26 points. That was.
No, that was my town that scored you 26 points.
No, I'm earlier in the game. Oh no, 18 points. It was that one that was like 6 shields or something. Yeah, that one I wiggled onto his and I took it over. I mean, yeah, it's a civil way to play, but it ends up it's an uncivil result.
So the Kickstarter that I could find for Orleans was the Deluxe Edition,
and
they made $251,468 on a $40,000 goal.
That is up there, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
All right, let's talk. Well, speaking of an upset, wow, Architects knocked out Orleans. Okay, Blood Rage versus Nemesis.
Which one do you want? Which one do you remember more?
I know which
because I
one I
like both
like.
these games, so
Yeah,
it's a
no,
wash for me.
they were
Uh,
fine. I think if I just went by preference, which one I'd rather play again, probably Blood Rage.
okay, I'll take Nemesis
That's the
as well.
drafting one, yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you want to go first or do you want me to?
I'll go ahead and go first, and I'm actually pulling up the Kickstarter for I can remember some of the stuff on it. Because we only, just for people to know, we've only played it the one time, and that was what, in February?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was fairly recent. Um,
Yes.
Nemesis was not a cooperative game, right?
It is. It sort of is, but isn't.
Yeah. It's like a group co-op thing. Like, we're all kind of dealing with the same bad stuff.
Yeah, but we're also trying to meet individual goals. So it's semi co op, I guess you could say, in the truest sense of.
Right.
Because it literally is semi co op. We're trying to work together as well as survive these legally but not alien.
Yeah.
What do they call them? Outsiders?
Yeah, something like that. Similar to
Yeah,
the
so
legally distinct friend.
I mean, honestly, if you guys just look up Nemesis on Kickstarter, just on Board Game Geek, the creatures look like Alien from the movie Aliens,
Right.
or Alien, or that's whole entire series. But yeah, but if this we mentioned this on movies that we should be video or board games. I said I want a good Nemesis. If they just got the Alien reskin, it'd be the perfect Alien game because it is about that survival. It is about that working and moving through tunnels and trying to survive these creatures while interacting with other players, but you're not really helping them. You're helping them, but not helping them. You're just trying to get what you need done, your scenario done, as well as like, I just need to be faster than that person. That person will be eaten by the alien.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to describe the mechanisms in this game because it's resource management, kind of movement, trying to make sure you use your captain, your player character right, using his abilities right, getting the right equipment. It's to me one of those big Euro trash style games where you have some Euro mechanisms, but it's Ameritrash through and through with the theming and the scariness coming out. And so when it comes down to the tiebreaker on this, it's going to be kind of hard for like ease of play to say it's really easy to play because it's not something that you're used to playing.
No, as complicated as Blood Rage is, which it's not, it's just bigger. I think ease of play would go to Blood Rage.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just drafting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the main mechanism is drafting, how you draft and how you're going to put your dudes on the map.
Yeah, so, I mean, ease of play definitely goes to that. Alright, let me go into Blood Rage. Now, I played it a couple years ago, but I feel like I remember it better than I do Nemesis, actually. I remember them probably about the same, and that's because I thought Blood Rage was more memorable. I know when I played it, I thought, in the back of my mind, it's like, okay, that was cool. I'm glad I got it off my list of games to play because everybody touts it so well. I'd play it again, sure, maybe. It was okay.
I want to own it. That's how much I like it. I want to own Nemesis too, but
no. As far as like stories go, Nemesis, I remember, and this is just both of my experiences compared between the two. Nemesis, I remember about 2/3 through the game, I came to the realization there was no way I was gonna win, and so I just started just jerking you guys over. Like that, I was trying to make everybody die effectively. Like, so I was like, all right, well, hey, look, there's this giant hatch and there's an alien here. Yeah, let's just open it. Whatever, I don't care. And that became.
Which, just so people know, could be a goal card that you have.
Sure.
He didn't have it. He was just being an asshole. But
no, I did have something that was detrimental to everybody.
Yeah.
I think I forget what goal it was, but I did have something that was significantly more detrimental to everybody else. And the cards that I did have, the other goals, were just at the point where they were unobtainable. So I was like, okay, fine, I'm just gonna cause this and let's just see what happens. I think I started like queuing the end of the game within like the first or second round that you could have. And it still took us a while. Whereas the memory that I have from Blood Rage is that when I went full Loki. And our friend almost won. I was second place. And our friend, he said, I've heard of people trying this. I've never seen anybody attempt it. but you went full force into like I remember I flooded the map with the weakest dudes I could, and it's like, hey everybody, light them on fire, have fun. Like I'm sending all of them to Valhalla at this point, and that was fun on that part of it. I liked the drafting of it. I liked how it's an area control. There is very reasonable, meaningful choices in it, and it wasn't hard to get to learn how to play it. I still vaguely remember it, probably better than I do Nemesis. Now,
yeah, Nemesis unfortunately had a lot going on for it.
Yeah.
Again,
so
it's kind of hard to describe that style of game, honestly. And so it's going to be interesting when we go into these tiebreakers, because the art and production of both games are really, really nice.
they really are. I would say, I mean, the minis on Blood Rage are phenomenal, but I would say I prefer the art and the graphic design of Nemesis.
I agree with you on that part.
Yeah.
So I say art and production go to Nemesis. Ease of play goes to Blood Rage, hands down. I'm
Yep.
sorry, it just does.
Meaningful choices, I think goes to Blood Rage, and
I think
that's
it does too, because you can hate draft in Blood Rage.
sure, yeah, but you're
your
never
long-term
locked out of.
strategy is based upon certain things like that.
Where Nemesis, it's up to the wind, you know. Like
Yeah.
there was a point where I was just making arbitrary choices because I had nothing else to do.
Game immersion here, this is where, other than memorable moments, like you were saying, the theme matching the mechanisms, this is an Alien game for me through and through. It does match. It gives you that feel. They just couldn't get the license.
Sure.
And interaction with other players, I think, would go to Blood Rage itself.
Yeah, interaction with other players because the drafting and the area control, that's a double layer, whereas the interaction for
So, art production we give to
Nemesis.
Ease of play we give to Blood Rage. Game immersion we give to Blood Rage. Meaningful choices we give to Blood Rage. So, Blood Rage is moving on.
All right, Blood Rage
So,
it is.
just for the replay value, I think length of time, Blood Rage plays better.
Yeah. It was a long
minimum
game.
number of plays for full experience, I think that one probably would go to Nemesis, because I think there is scenarios in it.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
then expandability, Blood Rage. Blood Rage has a lot of expansions that came with it during the initial Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Plus, they just recently had a second Kickstarter for a digital version, plus more stuff for the base game.
And even if we're basing it off of like what the games are based off of, you have a movie franchise that it's based off of. So you have all of the lore of the Aliens franchise versus all of Viking lore.
Yeah.
Or Norse lore, you know.
So we have our semifinals, but just for everybody to know, Nemesis was one of those that had to do a fund rate, and it was in pounds. It funded at $3,748,511.13.
Wow. Yep, quite a bit.
Yep. And its goal, so again, it was in pounds. It made 3 million pounds. Its goal was 50,000 pounds, which is roughly about $65,000.
Alrighty. Well, then going into our semifinals, which we'll take a quick break here in a moment, we will be having Gloomhaven, our number 1 seed, versus
Architects of the West Kingdom, the 6th seed,
and Scythe, our number 2 seed,
versus the 4 seed Blood Rage. That is going to be an interesting bracket.
Yeah, it will. I'm curious to see how this works out. With that being said, we're going to take a quick break, so stay tuned, and then join us in for the next